Hi everyone, welcome to my studio. I'm Rita Ginsberg and today I will be demonstrating how to paint this bluebird sitting on an old-fashioned water pump. Please join me with all my new videos by subscribing and pressing the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes. Thank you. In this demonstration, I used the grid method to draw the bluebird and old water pump on Uart sanded paper. I'm using a free reference photo for artists today, and I will be creating a field of tall grasses and soft trees for the background of this painting, not in the reference photo. I will first rough in the entire background before starting the bluebird and the water pump. For the background, I'm trying a new set of pastels called Mountain Vision pastels, and they're a hand-rolled pastel stick, and they seem to be going on very smoothly. And so far I've been able to apply several layers of color without it becoming too thick and heavy. So far I'm happy with the coverage, but for the taller grasses I will use my hard pastel sticks for a little bit more crisp detail. I'm going to add some detail to the foreground of this painting. There are some tall, dried up grasses in the foreground right behind the pump that I'm going to illustrate here. I think they will bring some depth to the painting by keeping them in sharp focus. I'm using my CarbOthello pastel pencils for these close-up details in the painting. As I add these sharp details to the foreground, suddenly the background appears more blurry and more out of focus. Although the background is not entirely finished, I'm going to move on to the bird in the painting. I like to use my tablet when drawing or painting. If my photo reference has good resolution, I'm able to zoom up very closely on my tablet to see the fine details and color contrast in the photo. I usually make a color copy of my photo, but I never rely on it for matching the color and hue of the actual photo. So I have already started on the bird's head, and I started using a light blue for the base layer just to get some color onto the paper, so additional layers of pastel will actually blend more smoothly. I'm gradually adding warmer colors of ultramarine blue to try and match the bird's natural color. I'm only using my pastel pencils for the bluebird and also for the water pump in the painting. I'm starting out by adding some of the shapes of the small feathers in the bird's wing. I will use the ultramarine blue to add darker shadows beneath each of these fine feathers. Then I can begin blending and shaping them before I begin adding more shades of lighter blue to give them more fullness and texture. I will save the final details in the bird's feathers for last. But I'm pleased with the fullness of his feathers already. So I'll begin again with my lightest shade of blue, just to fill in the tooth of the paper before I add richer colors to define his feathers. I'll use a very dark blue to define the shadows that are being cast beneath the bird's feathers, and then I'll use a darker shade of blue, and I gradually go to the ultramarine blue to complete the tail feathers. I would like to emphasize the colors in the bird's breast feathers, which is a burnt ochre, burnt sienna color with red orange and reddish brown to bring out the feathers in the male eastern bluebird. So please follow along as I complete the details in the bird's feathers. Then I will move on to demonstrate how to paint a realistic water pump. Now that the bird has been placed, I will start developing the water pump. I wanted to make it look very realistic, so I will pay close attention to the color values and details in the paint. My photograph in the upper right corner is rather small, but you can see some corrosion occurring around some of the moving parts and underneath the paint. I will use some dark reddish brown, like a burnt umber color, to create some of that rust color in the paint. In order to give it a realistic look, I will add some light blue around the edges of the paint that is slightly lifting up over the light corrosion in the metal. This will definitely give it a more realistic appearance. There's a little more corrosion occurring around the handle that I'll add here. I used some dark brown and a little bit of the burnt umber to create that rusty appearance, along with the light blue around the edges of the paint lifting lightly. My next step is to try and create the raised lettering on the pump. After outlining the letters, I'll add some light blue and blend the colors, and then gradually increase the shadowed areas behind the letters to create some dimension to their shapes. After I've done that, I'll add some highlights and some of the darker corrosion occurring around the letters, and then it's done. I will use my dark blue to create some shadows beneath the pipe, and then I'll add some lighter blue to add some highlights to the areas where daylight is shining on the pump. So I have nearly completed the blue casing of the water pump, and now I will move on to render the metal in the faucet and the piping of the water pump. I hope you have enjoyed this demonstration of painting a realistic hand water pump and Bluebird in his natural surroundings. Please join me for future lessons and demonstrations of pastel art with Rita Ginsberg. Thank you.